John Kavanagh, when did the name Donald Cerrone come across your table, and what was your reaction to it?
I suppose it was confirmed recently enough, within the last few months. But I guess it's been spoken about for quite a while now, since that press interview where they had a bit of a back and forward. So it wasn't that surprising.
With a coach's job, you have to come up with a game plan and things like that for your fighter. With Cerrone, I think it's pretty common perception that his weakness is a southpaw who brings forward pressure. Does that make your job in this fight a lot easier?
Yeah, if only we had a southpaw with crazy pressure, huh? Yeah, look, to be honest, with Conor's fight IQ, with Conor's understanding of the game, really this training camp is about all of us getting out of his way. So provide him an environment where he can have different looks, different feels, and support him where he wants the training camp to go, and intensities, and listening to him, where he has days where he wants to push hard and days where he wants to slow down. So it's not so much about, us coaches sitting down a game plan and then filling Conor in. Conor knows more about fighting than the rest of us put together.
How is he looking this training camp?
I think this is the best he's ever been. And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the consistency over the last few months. Is a real return to smiling on the mat, enjoying it, having fun. And it's a cliche to say, but a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. And he just seems really happy with his life and with his training and with the environment we have here, and competing again, and having those exchanges and so on. So I think this is going to be the best he's ever been.
Do you think with the Khabib fight, obviously a rivalry can make you want to train harder and make you push harder, but it can also take away that smile. When you're training, there's not so much a fun element in it, you're preparing for war. With Cerrone, he doesn't really have that sort of rivalry. They had a bicker in the past. Do you think, in terms of return fight, that's the perfect sort of comeback environment he should be coming back to?
Yeah, I guess the focus is a lot more this time on him and his return to form rather than anybody else. But I honestly think that would have been the case no matter who the opponent was. So, yeah, I don't think the opponent is that important to Conor. His mindset is the most important thing.
We've seen in recent years for Conor a fight, and then whether it be politics with the promotion or whatever, he's just kept out of the cage, and then he fights and then he's kept out again. He spoke earlier this year at a media tour in Russia that he wants 2020 to be a season. He wants it to be a consistent fights. Is that what he's told you? Is that the plan for the team as a whole?
Yeah, no, that's his talk, and I really like it. I really like how he's calling it a season, and aiming for 3 fights in 2020. And obviously, with his position, we can plan the dates very exactly. Back in the day, it was, you got 2 weeks' notice on the fight and you had to take it. Whereas we can really plan those years so that we can have proper progression in his training and peaking at the right time, and rest where it's needed and hard training where it's needed. So yeah, I'm very excited for 2020 to be his season.
One thing I think surprised fans when it was announced with the Cerrone fight is at 170 pounds. I guess your immediate reaction to that?
It's nice to not have to worry about making weight. It's now all we're worried about is training, and even in these last few weeks he's still able to train hard, whereas the last couple of weeks is always in the back of your head, okay, we have this weight cut ahead of us and training a little bit depleted, whereas now he's still eating very, very well, and he's practically on weight all the time anyway. So it's a bit of a relax in that area, and then of course you got to take into account it's going to be against someone a bit heavier than previous opponents, certainly at 45, but even at 55, I don't think there's going to be that much of a weight difference. Cerrone doesn't strike me as someone who's enormous, so I don't think it's going to play a role.
As far as you're concerned, why is it happening at 170?
Because Conor wanted it.
Fair point. Do you know why he wants it there?
So he doesn't have to cut weight.
The reason I ask is obviously there's another guy at 170 pounds who's long been linked to Conor this year, in Jorge Masvidal. He's had this meteoric rise, and UFC President Dana White said that Conor has his eyes on that fight. Do you foresee that one coming up this year in this 2020 season?
My honest answer is I don't know. This is really for Conor to figure out. He has been very consistent. The training has been absolute quality. We have a contest on January 18th. speak to him on January 19th. Does he want to go through it all again? Of course, if he does, I don't think the opponent matters too much. I don't think there is a fighter on the planet that has his fight IQ, his skill set that he has. It just really isn't that important to me who he faces. If he has the mindset that he has now, and if that's 3 fights in 2020 and Masvidal is one of them, well, as a fan, it's certainly one I'd be interested to see.
I think that Khabib loss sort of maybe put Conor in a space where he realised he was perhaps lacking some motivation leading into that fight. We saw after the first loss to Nate Diaz, he came back with a vengeance to win that second fight. Do you feel the same sort of reignition of fire in him this camp?
I think it's even more because the Diaz fight was definitely, okay, you know, we're going to train hard for 4 months. I want to get that rematch. I shouldn't have lost the way I lost. I think that was the motivation and the mentality. This one is different because it's not a rematch against Khabib, so it's just a fight, if you want to look at it that way. But it's more a return to like really loving all aspects of it and trying to make the training around that, around the passion for it that he had for, you know, getting ready for the Eddie fight, let's say, or the Aldo fight, and it was just training as fun and experiment with techniques and looking at new moves, and so it's different than just the revenge being, or the motivation being revenge. The motivation here seems to be love, and love is stronger than revenge.
It's very powerful words, John.
I couldn't say that out loud.
Just, you know.
But I seen one tear.
It touched me. It touched me in a way I'm not sure I can express. On Khabib, Dana White says that Conor isn't convinced this Tony Khabib fight in April is going to happen, that something's going to happen for the 5th time and this is going to get scrapped again. And he says Conor believes he can fight at 170, cut down to 155 and slip in there. Do you believe that's a possibility? And do you even think that's right for him to do, to take a late notice fight against someone like Khabib, who's got such a particular skill set that you need to prepare for?
First of all, physically, could he make 155? He can make 155 next weekend. No problem at all. No problem at all. Would it be a late notice fight if we're already now training for it? No. So again, it's sort of like January 19th. Are we, well, maybe not the 19th, maybe the 20th. Are we back training? And are we looking at that April date and peaking on April with the mindset being that we will step in or take a fight against whoever? Well, then it's not late notice. So yeah, if it's weight-wise, no problem. Like I said, we could literally get him on weight in 10 days' time, comfortably. So the weight is not an issue. It would just be if we are training.
Cool. And the last name of an opponent I'm going to give to you, I know you said you didn't care who he fights. Justin Gaethje, he's been very vocal about how Conor should be fighting him, not Cerrone. He's been vocally pissed off on Twitter about that. Do you have any thoughts on Gaethje as an opponent? Because I know Conor was preparing to fight him last year before he had an injury that ruled him out. Do you have any thoughts on Gaethje as an opponent? And do you think Gaethje has any right to be vexed that Conor might get a Khabib fight before him?
The second question, I just don't really concern myself on that side of things, you know. I understand, you know, generate a little bit of noise online, and it's a surefire way of getting a few headlines if you mention Conor's name. But just to look at Gaethje as an opponent, very good competitor, hard hitter, you know, comes forward, a lot of pressure, exciting fighter. Him matched up against Conor at some stage would be fantastic. I think that'd be a great fight. I think the fans would love it. I think stylistically it suits Conor. Conor uses a huge amount of pressure, but I think he's actually better countering. But he doesn't counter like most counter fighters by just staying out of range or moving backwards. Enormous amount of pressure, gets a reaction, puts you asleep. And I think that's what would happen in a Justin fight, considering how he fights. But that being said, solid competitor, and it would be a great fight.
And last 2 questions. It's the most cliche one of all, but give us your prediction for January 18th when Conor McGregor fights Donald Cerrone.
I think it's going to be late. I could see you being in the championship rounds. So that's the mindset that I personally have, and be ready for that. Now, you can go in and spark him in seconds, but I think there's a bit extra weight involved. So I think later in the later rounds.
And last one, let's say Conor fights 3 times next year, and this 2020 season happens the way we're talking about it now, and this motivation continues. At the end of 2020, all things going well, how where could we be with Conor McGregor?
I'm going to steal a line from my favourite movie. You're asking me how a clock works. For now, let's just keep an eye on the time.
John Kavanagh, thank you very much.
CBA, never say